All right, today we're going deep dive into the world of Lululemon.
Yeah.
We're going to try to unpack their business model and see what we can find,
Mm,
figure out how they make their money,
right.
what are their biggest expenses, what makes them stand out in this crazy world of athleisure. We're
Exact.
going through all their financial statements, their 10Ks, 10Qs.
Looking at all that good stuff.
Yeah, we even got a peek at their employee stock purchase plan.
No, interesting.
So they're really going to get a good handle on how Lululemon makes money and stays ahead of the game.
Well, what's fascinating to me is that Lululemon, they're not just selling clothes, right?
Yeah.
They've really cultivated this whole lifestyle brand, tapping into this like cultural shift towards wellness.
Right.
Creating a community around their
So it's
products.
not just about the clothes themselves. It's about the feeling, the image, the whole experience.
Exactly. Exactly. It's about aspiration. But before we get too deep into that, let's just start with the basics. How does Lululemon actually generate revenue?
Okay, so selling clothes, obviously that's a big part of it.
Right.
But when you look at their financial reports,
Yeah.
it's a lot more nuanced than just that, right?
Absolutely. They've got a diverse range of revenue streams. So you think about their company-operated stores, their online presence, they have their e-commerce platform, outlet stores for people looking for deals,
Mm-hmm.
and even wholesale accounts.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then they're expanding globally, too, through licensing deals.
That's right. And speaking of expanding, remember that whole studio thing they had going?
Oh, yeah.
The mirror workout platform?
Right.
Didn't that end up kind of not working out so well?
Yes, they did end up rebranding it and ultimately taking a pretty significant impairment charge in 2023.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't like financial experts,
Sure.
what exactly does an impairment charge mean in this context?
Yeah, so essentially it means that the value of their investment in Mirror decreased significantly
Got it.
to the point where they had to recognize that loss on their financial statements. But it's interesting. It shows that they're willing to experiment and try new things, even if it means taking a hit sometimes.
Right.
And that move was also tied to their digital subscription revenue stream, which they still have.
That's interesting. So they're not afraid to take risks, but they're also willing to adapt and change course if they need to.
Exactly.
But experimenting can get expensive.
Right.
What are some of the major costs that Lululemon has to deal with?
Well, I mean, their raw materials are highly specialized.
Yeah.
They're sourced from a limited number of vendors, which gives those suppliers a lot of leverage.
Right.
So, those signature high-tech fabrics, innovative designs, they don't come cheap.
I can see how that would add up quickly.
Yeah.
But hold on, I'm looking at their financial statements here,
Okay.
and it seems like they don't have long-term contracts with these like really important suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that kind of a risky move,
Mm-hmm.
especially with how crucial those materials are to their brand?
It's absolutely a risk that they acknowledge in their filings. The competition for these specialized materials is fierce.
Right.
And any disruption in that supply chain could have a real impact on their production and profitability.
So they're walking a tightrope between like maintaining flexibility and potentially, facing some vulnerabilities there.
Yeah, precisely.
Makes sense.
But they're betting on their ability to manage those relationships effectively and navigate potential challenges.
It's a calculated risk.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've talked about how Lululemon makes money,
Yeah.
some of the costs involved in creating their products.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the customer, right?
Yeah.
Why are people willing to pay, a premium for Lululemon compared to other athletic wear brands? It can't just be about the technical fabrics, right?
You're hitting on a key point there. It's
Yeah.
about the customer value proposition, the overall experience and feeling that Lululemon offers.
Mhm.
They've mastered the art of creating a lifestyle brand,
Okay.
going beyond just clothing to offer a sense of community, aspiration, belonging.
So they're selling a feeling, an idea.
Exactly. Exactly. Just an outfit. It's more than just an outfit. Yeah.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And, that's reflected in their vertical retail strategy, where they control every step from designing the clothes to selling them in their stores, gives them a lot of control over the customer experience and allows them to build those relationships with their buyers.
And they talk a lot in their reports about engaging with their customers,
Yeah.
gathering feedback, tweaking designs based on what they hear. It's like a continuous feedback loop, right?
Absolutely. It's all about fostering that sense of community
Yeah,
and making customers feel like they're part of something bigger
that makes sense.
than just a brand.
It's smart strategy, but
Yeah.
the athleisure market is so competitive these days.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Everyone seems to be making yoga pants now.
Right.
How does Lululemon stay ahead of the pack and maintain that premium image?
It's a combination of factors.
Fine.
Really, they've built this incredibly strong brand associated with quality, performance, and that kind of aspirational lifestyle.
Right.
Their community-focused approach is also really unique,
Hmm.
creating that loyal following that goes beyond just transactional purchases.
They also seem to be very strategic in their focus,
Yeah.
emphasizing specific activities like
Yeah.
yoga, running, and training,
Right.
but also broadening their appeal to encompass like a more general on-the-move
Right.
lifestyle.
Right. They're striking a balance between specialization and broader reach.
Yeah,
And let's not forget their constant innovation.
that's right.
They're always pushing the boundaries of athletic apparel with new fabrics, designs,
But they're
features.
not resting on their laurels.
Exactly.
They're always looking to evolve and improve.
Yes.
But all of that requires a lot of moving parts behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the critical operational activities that make this Lululemon machine run so smoothly?
Well, I mean, design and development, that's paramount. They invest heavily in research and development, constantly seeking ways to improve their fabrics, functionality, and just the overall design aesthetic.
And then, sourcing and manufacturing those high-tech materials,
Right.
I imagine that's a really complex process, especially given their focus on ethical sourcing and responsible production.
It definitely is. They have a very detailed vendor code of ethics
Hmm.
that they expect their suppliers to adhere to, and they conduct regular audits to ensure compliance.
Okay, so it's not just about making great products.
No.
It's about doing it in a way that aligns with their values
Exact.
and
Yeah.
resonates with their, conscious consumer base.
Precisely.
And then, of course, you have their retail operations, which
Sure.
are just so carefully crafted to provide a really unique and engaging customer experience.
Yeah, you walk into a Lululemon store and it's not just a place to buy clothes.
It's an experience.
It's a community hub.
Yeah, they have
And
events, classes, workshops.
it's the whole thing.
It is. And then you can't forget their marketing machine,
Right.
constantly reinforcing that aspirational lifestyle image and community feel.
Absolutely. They've mastered a blend of big budget campaigns with a more local grassroots approach
Yeah.
to create this powerful, consistent brand message across all channels.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, unpacking these key elements of Lululemon's business model.
Yeah, we've touched on a lot.
We've looked at their revenue streams, their cost drivers, how they create value for their customers, what makes them stand out in such a crowded marketplace.
It's a really interesting model.
But there's still a lot more to explore.
Oh, yeah, we've only just scratched the surface. Ready to crunch some numbers.
I am.
Because Lululemon's financials, they reveal some pretty fascinating insights.
I'm all ears, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
especially curious about those, impressive sales per square foot figures I've heard about.
Yeah.
They're known for having really productive stores.
Yeah. They're retail rock stars, that's for sure.
So what's the story there?
Well, back in 2021, their sales per square foot were $4,443.
Wow.
Already, quite impressive.
That's a lot of leggings in a small space.
It is, and it comes down to, their brand strength allows them to charge those premium prices,
Yeah.
and their focus on that unique in-store experience, it draws customers in and encourages them to spend.
So people don't just shop at Lululemon. They immerse themselves in the brand.
Exactly, yeah, they buy into the whole thing.
So how have those numbers changed over time?
Well, in 2022, that figure jumped to $580.
Okay.
And in 2023, a whopping $500 and $609 per square foot.
Wow. So their stores are becoming even more productive.
They are, which is, a great sign for investors.
Yeah.
It shows that their strategy is working.
What's fueling that continued growth?
It's a combination of things.
Yeah, right.
Their brand power is growing, which allows them to command those premium prices, as we talked about. And, their dedication to creating that unique in-store experience, it really does pay off.
Okay, that makes sense. But we also talked about those international licensing deals. Are
Yeah.
those bringing in significant revenue?
They are contributing.
Okay.
As of January 29, 2023, they had 26 licensed locations globally,
Wow. Okay.
which includes 12 in Mexico and 7 in the United Arab Emirates.
So as a way to generate revenue and kind of test the waters in new markets
Exactly.
without the full investment of opening their own stores.
Exactly. A very smart, measured approach to global expansion.
Yeah.
Now, remember that impairment charge we discussed earlier? The one related to the studio mirror business?
Yeah, the $407.9 million hit they took in 2022, that's got to sting, even for a company as successful as Lululemon.
Of course, but remember that charge is primarily an accounting measure, right?
Yeah.
It reflects a decrease in the fair value of the assets associated with that business unit.
So it's more of a paper loss.
Right.
Not necessarily like a sign of financial distress or operational problem.
Exactly.
It's more about adjusting their books to reflect the reality of this situation.
Precisely. It's a reflection of changing market conditions and the performance of that particular acquisition.
Okay, that makes sense, but I am curious. Have they made any other, significant investments or acquisitions lately?
Well, in terms of major acquisitions, things have been relatively quiet.
Okay.
But their financial filings reveal a different kind of investment, a huge expansion of their distribution network.
Oh, right, yeah.
They've been,
They mentioned that massive new distribution center in Ontario, California.
yes.
How big is this thing?
It's a behemoth. It's 1,250,000 square feet.
Wow.
And they signed a lease on it back in 2021. It runs until 2038.
That's a serious commitment
It is.
to meeting that growing demand. And this isn't the only distribution center they have, right?
Oh, not even close. They've got a whole network of them.
Okay.
You've got one in Milton, Ontario, another one in Mississauga, Ontario. Okay.
Both of those leases also extend into the 2030s. And then they have several facilities in Delta, British Columbia.
It's like they're building an athleisure empire, brick by brick.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Empires need workers.
They do.
What about their employee stock purchase plan? What kind of perks do Lululemon employees get?
So the details are all in their latest 10Q filing.
Okay.
It's a pretty standard plan.
Okay.
Employees can contribute up to 15% of their eligible compensation and buy shares at a discount.
Right.
The discount is either 15% or 5%, depending on the specific offering period.
So a nice little incentive to get employees invested in the company's success, align everyone's interests.
Exactly. Keep everybody happy.
But, we talked earlier about Lululemon's commitment to ethical sourcing and their vendor code of ethics.
Right.
How do they actually ensure that their suppliers are, playing by the rules?
That's where things get a bit tricky.
They're upfront about the fact that they don't directly control their suppliers' operations.
Wow.
They rely on audits and assessments to monitor compliance with their ethical standards.
That seems like a tough job, especially with a global supply chain.
It is.
How can they be sure those audits are, thorough and accurate?
It's a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
They work with third-party auditing firms.
Okay.
And they have teams dedicated to supply chain responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
They're also, constantly exploring ways to increase transparency and traceability within their supply chain.
So they're acknowledging the limitations,
Yeah.
but also trying to improve their oversight.
Right. And they're facing increasing scrutiny, from consumers and investors who are demanding greater transparency and accountability from brands.
It's a delicate balance,
It is.
trying to manage costs and ensure ethical practices in this
Mhm.
complex global marketplace.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle.
It sounds like they're trying to find ways to be more proactive and go beyond just reacting to problems.
Exactly. They're investing in, technology and partnerships to gain better visibility into their supply chain. It's an ongoing process.
Okay, this is all incredibly insightful, but it's also a lot to digest.
Yeah.
We've covered their impressive sales figures, their international expansion, that big impairment charge, their distribution network, their employee stock purchase plan, and the challenges of ethical sourcing.
It's a lot to take in for sure, but it's all fascinating stuff.
It is, and all of this information paints a picture
Mhm.
of a company that's really navigating this complex and evolving market.
And in the final part of this deep dive, we'll connect all these dots and explore what it means for Lululemon's future
That's right.
and how they're positioning themselves for continued success in this ever-changing world of athleisure.
Okay, so we've really gone deep into Lululemon's financials, their operations, even their employee perks. Now let's kind of put it all together and look ahead. Can Lululemon keep up this incredible momentum?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
They've been on this upward trajectory for years,
Right.
but the market is constantly evolving.
And speaking of evolving, remember those comparable sales figures we discussed?
Yeah.
I think it was early 2023. They saw a slight dip in the Americas, but then A strong rebound?
Right. So their America's comparable sales, they decreased by 1% in the first two quarters of 2023.
Uh,
And that was mainly because fewer people who visited their stores or website actually made a purchase.
Interesting.
But foot traffic actually increased, so more people were coming in
Okay.
and they saw a higher dollar value per transaction, so people were spending more when they did buy something.
So people were still coming to the stores,
Yeah,
but just being a little bit more selective, maybe?
possibly. Yeah.
So what happened next?
Well, things picked up.
Okay.
By the second quarter of 2024, their America's comparable sales were up by 3%.
It's a good sign.
It is. It suggests their brand power and customer loyalty, they're still strong.
That's reassuring. But what about their international growth?
Mhm.
Especially in China. We saw some really impressive numbers there.
Absolutely. So during the first half of 2023, their China mainland net revenue grew by a remarkable 39%.
Wow. That's incredible.
It is. And that growth continued into the second quarter of 2024 with another 44% increase.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. It seems like they've really tapped into a lucrative market there.
Yeah, it seems like it.
It's a crucial growth area for them for sure.
Right.
The Chinese athleisure market is booming,
Right.
and Lululemon is well positioned to capitalize on that trend.
But remember those supply chain risks we talked about earlier?
Yeah,
Their reliance on, just a handful of suppliers?
right.
That could come back to bite them, right?
Definitely a concern. I
Yeah.
mean, any disruption to their supply chain could really impact their ability to meet demand. And it's not just about global events.
Right.
Imagine if one of their key suppliers like suddenly hiked prices or decided to favor a competitor.
Yeah, that would put them in a tough spot.
It would. It would.
So what are they doing to mitigate that risk?
Well, they are taking steps to diversify their supplier base.
Okay.
They're exploring new materials and investing heavily in their distribution network to create more flexibility.
So kind of spreading the risk,
Exactly.
building in some buffers.
Yeah, exactly. It's a calculated gamble.
Yeah.
But Lululemon, they have a history of making smart strategic decisions.
Right.
They're not just chasing fads, they're building a sustainable business.
And they're not afraid to experiment, to evolve.
Right.
They've shown they're willing to try new things,
Yeah.
adapt to changing consumer preferences, even if it means taking some risks along the way.
Precisely. They're constantly innovating, pushing the boundaries of what athletic apparel can be, and fostering that strong sense of community around their brand.
Right. It's more than just clothes at this point.
Exactly. It's a loyal following that goes beyond just buying clothes.
So where does this all leave us? What's the big takeaway for our listeners today?
Well, I think Lululemon is a fascinating example of how to build a successful lifestyle brand in today's market.
Yeah.
They've created this really unique blend of product experience and community that clearly resonates with consumers.
They're not without their challenges, right?
First, not no businesses.
Especially that, reliance on a limited number of suppliers.
That's right. And the athleisure market is only getting more competitive. They'll need to stay agile, innovative to maintain their edge.
That's for sure. Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of Lululemon.
It has. It's been a pleasure.
Lots of great insights.
Yeah.
We've learned about their financials, their operations, their commitment to community, and ethical sourcing.
Their risks, their successes.
Absolutely. It's a company that's doing a lot of things right, but also facing some real challenges in a rapidly changing market.
It's a dynamic story, and it'll be interesting to see how it continues to unfold.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another look at a fascinating company.